shortly, but for the next 5 minutes, you will want to turn to somebody you don't know and ask them a question you're genuinely interested in. So not the typical, like, where are you from? What do you do? Something you're genuinely interested in. So something like, what makes you feel alive? What brought you here tonight? What are your passions? So turn to someone you don't know and ask some questions. grab a seat so we can get started. I know everybody's super interested in here, but I promise you'll have more time to get to know everybody later. Alright, so as you're settling into your seats, we're just going to do a quick meditation just to get yourself centered, to let go of whatever you need to let go of. So just make your way into your seats. Get yourself comfortable in your chair. If it feels comfortable to close your eyes, go ahead. If not, just keep a nice, gentle, soft gaze, maybe peering about 5 feet ahead of you. Let your eyes relax. You feel the chair underneath you. You feel your body. Maybe doing a quick body scan, just feeling the sensations that arise as you bring your attention through your body. And just noticing what comes up for you. And if you have thoughts or images coming to mind, just let them pass. You can give them attention later. Right now, just focus on your body. And we'll take just a couple of collective breaths together. So empty out the air in your lungs. And when you're ready, just inhale and exhale. And inhale again. And exhale. And when you feel ready, you can slowly blink your eyes open. And turning back to the room. And maybe just notice what it feels like to be in this space. To feel everybody around you. Just noticing the people around you. And what you came for tonight. Alright, so to start us off, we have a couple of announcements from 2 of our community members. So first I'm going to invite up Solara. So Solara has a quick announcement.
Thank you, Valerie, for that amazing meditation. So my name is Solara, and I'm the founder of the Institute of Visionary Studies, which is a Visionary Leadership School, and I'm here networking tonight because I believe that virtual reality is the intersection between spirituality and technology. And I'm part Native American. I'm a viewer at Channel, and I've had several near-death experiences, which has given me an ability to connect to a consciousness and information that is kind of outside of the range, and that's been content that I've put in the school to help people create conscious evolution, the heart, mind, body, soul connection, and I'm now branching out into exploring virtual reality, and Mikey Siegel was kind enough to let me have a little shout out tonight. So I'm here networking for anyone that is on the development side of things, that there's an interest in creating, really conscious applications that are really accelerating the evolution of where people are at. So this is just my opportunity to introduce myself to the community. I'm brand new, and if you just want to come up and say hi, I'm open for that, or have any thoughts or want a collaboration. Talking to a few companies and groups, but I'm still open for allyship, so thank you so much.
Thanks. And you probably noticed that really awesome machine in the back of the room that looks super mysterious and exciting. It's definitely going to hack your consciousness. And to talk more about that and your options for using that tonight is Sharna.
And this is Toshi. Hi.
Hi, I'm Charna.
and I'm the owner of Illuminated SF. I have a meditative light machine. It's actually called the Lucia #3 hypnagogic light machine. And if you're curious to learn more about it, what it does is the nervous system reset. It creates harmonic brain waves, induces more alpha and theta brain waves, and is a psychedelic journey for a lot of people. So what you see is a reflection of your consciousness, so it's different for each person. And so there's going to be, I guess, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a little breakaway thing. Breakout discussion. And I'm offering short free sessions tonight. So come and talk to me. And I have coupons for 25% off your first hour-long session if you decide to do that.
Thank you so much for that offering. And I forgot to introduce myself. Something else, that's me annoying you guys, so yeah, you're welcome. And tonight we have Chris who's going to be co-hosting with me since Mikey couldn't be here tonight. So he's going to tell you a little bit of background on what consciousness hacking is all about.
Hey everyone, good to see y'all. Can I get a show of hands? Who here is at Consciousness Hacking for the first time? Wow. Nice job. Well, welcome. Consciousness Hacking is a global community. We're about 3 years old. We've grown organically from a first location here in the Bay Area to I think 20 locations on 3 continents. The thing that brings us together is exploring the intersection between humanity and technology. It's essentially, this whole wave of new technologies upon us and only accelerating. And the question is, what do we do about it? How do we design and foster technologies that are more compatible with a sane inner life that can actually point us towards our highest potential as human beings and turn us into something more than monetized click machines on the web? There's a whole range of how this intersects with kind of ongoing exponential gains in biodata, processing power, machine learning, new worlds through virtual and augmented reality, advances in manufacturing with new wearables, and obviously our ongoing revolutions in neuroscience. And for those who are kind of woke to the consciousness side of the scene, how the mind interacts with the heart to produce something that might be greater than the sum of the parts. So our community does exactly that sort of exploration, both trying to support makers in the space, entrepreneurs looking for partners and collaborators, people like my friend Sharna, sharing just amazing mind-bending technologies. Like I would encourage y'all to sign up, except I just want to sign up for all the sessions. So a little bit of internal conflict there. But yeah, point being is, if you're into the future of humanity and what that looks like given the digital age, you've come to the right place. So welcome. And I'll pass it back off to Valerie for some more good stuff.
We're going to have a very well coordinated back and forth between Chris and tonight.
seamless.
You're in for it. Yeah, we practiced this a lot, obviously. So as Chris mentioned, so the way that we're doing everything that Chris just talked about is we have a couple different event structures. So the first, on every first Wednesday of the month, we have a speaker like Andrés tonight who's going to be talking about some of these amazing ideas. And then after our speaker, we have breakout discussion groups that are a way for people to connect more deeply. And that's really bridging the connection between mind and heart. So it's not just like hearing something, staying in this headspace, but really how do we connect with each other? That's the community part of consciousness hacking, is how do we really get to know each other and connect from a place of vulnerability and depth that you don't typically find. And so an extension of that is our interactives. Like from the breakout discussions, we realized that this is really a lot of people's favorite parts of the evening, where they create incredible collaborations, they get to meet people, really form great friendships. So we decided that we would want to expand on this idea and create interactives that are really about experiencing things together, like doing the practices together. A lot of us probably have individual practices, but how often do we get to practice together in a community? And how does that change our experience? So every third Wednesday of the month, we have interactives. And then we also have our conscious dating series. This is solely because I'm single and wanted to meet somebody. And I like this community. I thought this is a great great place to meet people, right? And other people are probably thinking the same thing. So I thought, why don't we facilitate it and do more than just throw like mixers? You know, let's do something conscious about it. Like, how can we make dating into something conscious? It's something that we all do, right? But something that doesn't really, it's not a practice. Like, I find in this community we can make a practice out of everything, like everything. But dating seems to be something that's kind of lacking. So we've incorporated different things like communication, so we can learn how to give and receive feedback, how to notice like what's coming up for ourselves when we're in interactions with different people. So we bring that consciousness into dating as well. And then we also have parties every now and then because, yeah, I don't need to explain that, it's a party. So we had our first party in December and it was amazing, total hit. So we're doing our next one on July 30th. It's going to be at WeWork. I just visited the venue this afternoon, so it's called WeWork at 2 Embarcadero Center. So we're going to be doing that on July 30th. So mark your calendars for that. I'll be sending out lots of information, but mark your calendars for that. And now Chris is going to talk about membership.
So, as Valerie outlined, we have all these amazing events, and what's happening is that, we're really looking at how do we design an organization that best serves all of you, and that helps us build something even cooler in the future. And so, accordingly, we come up with the idea of memberships, and the idea there is simply for $10 a month, which is less than the cost of one ticket. You get one free pass to any consciousness hacking event of your choice each and every month. And what's even more special about that, other than the obvious discount, is that we're really hitting that inflection point where some of our events are selling out. And we really prioritize first come, first serve for members, and make sure that all of our monthly members have a ticket to our events. It's kind of like a United Airlines situation, except we do it through consciousness and good intention rather than whatever the hell that was. Another good deal, another good angle on the membership is that if you love the community and want to commit for a whole year, rather than $120, $10 a month, we'll offer it to you for $100. So really, it's a massive discount, great deal. We have so many good events in the pipeline. Like we have events for months scheduled already. No spoilers, but freaking awesome. So do sign up for a membership. It also helps us as we try and form partnerships and do more cool things with the organization to actually be able to have a head count of these are the number of people who really get it and care and keep coming back. So please do consider that. And if you're wanting to look for other ways, like maybe the money, the whole thing, fine, we get it. Spiritual communities have all sorts of blocks around money, but we are always looking for volunteers. So I'm going to pass it off to Valerie on how you can get involved on that level.
So smooth, man. This is incredible. So yes, if you'd like to volunteer, please come talk to me, Valerie. Also, if you're interested in membership, the link is right here. Open Collective /CHSF. So go to that website. Yeah, if you're interested in volunteering, our volunteers also just have a good time with each other. We like to have volunteer get-togethers and just create more of a community. So it's not just about people getting free admission. It's really creating a sense of we put this on together and just finding a way to be more involved in the community. So first, I'd like to give a round of applause for our volunteers tonight. So if you're a volunteer, Susie, come up. Anyone else who can stand up? They're probably all out working right now. Thank you. Yes, we got some volunteers. Thank you to our amazing volunteers. And also thank you to Ecosystem, this venue. So they allow us to have this space here. If you've noticed, there's incredible artwork on the walls. Please be careful of the artwork. It is very expensive. And so especially this podium in the middle, just please be careful with everything around you.
Okay, so before we jump into this, we just want to make one more announcement. Valerie was kind enough to introduce the summer party on Sunday, July 30th. In addition to that, our next Consciousness Hacking Interactive is Wednesday, June 21st. It's on the idea of awareness with a dear friend and community member of ours named Sperry Andrews. Sperry had a non-dual awakening when he was 5 years old, some wild thing, and his mind has been wide open ever since. I personally have practiced with Sperry in a number of contexts, and really can vouch this guy's the real deal. He's kind of a trip, and so if you want kind of a really easy on-ramp to this sort of timeless, spaceless awareness that seems to contain all things and beings, you know, it might be a good idea to show up. So, you know, YouTube, that's good too. So getting into it for tonight, you know, obviously we have this amazing talk, which we're just about to get into. We'll follow that up with some Q&A, so think of your questions during the ride, and we'll call you out. And also after that, we'll have a small break, you know, more snacks and schmoozing. And then we'll have our famous breakout sessions, where community members can coordinate with us, come up with some topics of your choice, and we'll help disperse you around the room. It's a great, you know, I mean, who comes to a consciousness hacking event? There's clearly something going on internally that's interesting in that kind of mind in all of you. So we encourage you to lead a breakout group. So without further ado, Andrés is kind of a force of nature. I mean, quantifying bliss, how freaking cool is that? What's special, I would say, is that for someone who's doing this depth of research, like something has to have happened along the way. So he blends the like really amazing, deep, like Stanford symbolic systems degree with his own direct experience of consciousness and all sorts of mystical endeavors. So I think just in the interest of time, we'll jump right on in. So thank you all for being here. And I give you Andrés Gómez Emilsson. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Hello, how is everybody? Cool. Yeah, so first of all, well, I'm Andrés, QualiaComputing.com. I'm also one of the researchers in the Qualia Research Institute. And if you're interested about that, definitely come talk to me. There's some things cooking on the way in that front. And I want to say that I'm really grateful to be here. I love consciousness hacking. It's a wonderful community. I find it fascinating to blend spirituality and technology and first-person experience and exploration into something that, well, it's really the next stage of human evolution. So let's start with a simple question. What's the meaning of life? Okay, so just to kind of like put it out there where I'm coming from, I think like just to guide us, I think of it in terms of, there's two facets. On the one hand, you have to understand the universe. Like hopefully part of the meaning of life is to make sense of reality. And then on the other part is to be happy and make others happy. And I've got to confess that at least for half of my life, I really just thought the meaning of life was number one. Like almost like happiness was kind of some kind of distraction. And really the whole, like my whole purpose was to just have a hyper-rational description of the universe, and that's it. But then like as a teenager, reading philosophy, I was introduced to meditation, experimenting with psychedelics and things like that, kind of made me realize, well, actually, we have a very poor understanding of consciousness, and even poorer understanding of happiness and the meaning of like intense bliss. And I thought, hey, like actually, this goal just like opened up to my life. I had kind of this expansive experience about that. And I think really these two things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they can be seamlessly combined. On the one hand, to understand the universe will allow you to understand the nature of happiness and bliss. And as well, if you're able to be happy and make other people happy, you will remain motivated to be able to investigate the nature of reality. So they feed off each other. They should be thought of as symbiotic rather than in opposition. And this brings to the forefront kind of the question of what makes an experience valuable. And I think the way in which I approach it is to basically ask the following three questions. If I have an experience or somebody describes me of an experience that they consider very valuable is, okay, how do they fare in these three dimensions? Does it feel good? I think that's an important component. The second is, does it make you productive? And in a good way. And by that I mean, does it further your values? Does it allow you to pursue what you care about? And thirdly, does it make you ethical and caring and compassionate and loving for other people? And I think like good experiences, or the ones that we should value as highly valuable are those that satisfy all of these three things at once. And at some point, I might delve like much deeper into that, but for tonight, I'm actually gonna focus on the first component, trying to find a scientific and ultimately like completely coherent way of identifying what makes an experience pleasant, what makes an experience feel good, ecstatic, blissful, amazing. And to kind of like put this into some context, I'm just gonna briefly mention kind of like the kind of standard way in which in neuroscience and psychology they tend to divide emotions, which is along these two dimensions. You have on the one hand valence, which is how good the experience feels, and on the other hand you have arousal, which is how much energy you have. So for example, like excitement is a high arousal, high valence state, whereas serenity or peacefulness is a low arousal, but still high valence state. Depression would be low valence, but low arousal, and anxiety and anger is high arousal, low valence. But then you will also come to the conclusion that there's like a lot of emotions that can be placed pretty much in exactly the same point in that two-dimensional space. And yet the raw experiential texture of those emotions are very different. So emotions and states of consciousness have there's a lot more to them in terms of like structure and feeling and experiential character than you get from just valence and arousal. This is briefly a graph of like 175 emotions and the transition probabilities between them. And I think it kind of like captures a little bit kind of the fine-grained structure of emotion. There's like a lot of it in there. Things that may feel, from a broad perspective, somewhat similar, really they have like some subtle differences that ultimately affect our behavior or the way we perceive the world. And so this kind of puts to the forefront the question, so what is bliss? How is it possible there could be so many different experiences with all of them being very rewarding that we regard as very valuable, and yet have different textures? So what is it that underlies the similarities of all the experiences that are worthwhile in the sense of feeling good? And there's like obviously many accounts for trying to answer these. You have kind of people who believe that it's kind of some kind of a spiritual signal, that basically when you have a holistic feeling of well-being, that's some kind of a higher entity telling you that you're on the right path, for example. And other people might say, hey, it's just chemical reactions in your brain, don't worry about it. And other people might say, wait, it's activations in the pleasure center. But if you notice, all of these accounts are really just saying how bliss behaves and under what conditions it gets triggered. It's not telling what exactly it is. It's very similar to if you just look at, for example, an electron. You might look at the equations and see how it behaves in different contexts. But that doesn't allow you to see what exactly is an electron in a deeper sense, what it truly is. And the last option here is basically trying to get at that, is maybe that symmetry and consciousness have something to do with when it comes to bliss. My colleagues and I in the Quilly Research Institute have been basically working out a fundamental theory of valence, the pleasure-pain axis, where symmetry is at the core of it. And there's kind of like this just one bit of formalism that I think it's important to put out, and that is that just as through the history of science, it has been very beneficial to postulate that for any weird phenomena that you look at, there might be a mathematical object such that the properties of that object correspond to the properties of the phenomena you're studying. Likewise, we postulate there exists a mathematical object such that the mathematical properties of it map into the properties of any experience that you may care about. So we call these the symmetry theory of valence. And it would have like more or less the following components. So the first one is that consciousness is real and it's a measurable thing. It's actually like, it truly exists. I mean, there's a lot of, it's fashionable nowadays in neuroscience and cognitive science to think of consciousness as some sort of illusion. We say no, actually consciousness is definitely real, it's a part of reality. It's important as well to kind of here realize that symmetry has a very deep connection with harmony. In a sense, harmony is symmetry over time. So we would kind of explain why harmonic sounds, for example, sound good, or harmonic stimulation through visual experience also can feel really good, precisely because there is symmetry over time. And like the key component here would be still symmetry. Then the pleasure centers, in this interpretation, they work as tuning knobs for harmonic patterns. So it's not that if you look into the pleasure centers themselves, you will find some kind of the essence of pleasure, like in the proteins expressed in the very pleasure centers. It's more that as a system in the entire brain, the pleasure centers are strategically positioned really at the center of it all, such that by changing very slightly that activity, you can modulate the whole harmonic patterns in the entire brain. So they're like very strategically positioned to do that. Boredom would be some kind of mechanism in the brain that creates anti-symmetry. So if you listen to a song, sure, it could be very harmonious, it could be very beautiful. But if you listen to it 1,000 times, eventually you get bored. It's like, hey, what's up? Didn't you say that pleasure had to do with symmetry? I'm still listening to the song and it's still symmetrical, but I don't feel it anymore. And what we would say here is actually, well, your brain kicked in this mechanism to introduce noise or dissonance when you experience that music, because it's actually just something you thoroughly know. So basically, there's like these inbuilt mechanisms that disturb the symmetry whenever things get boring. It's also important to say that the interpretation here of like the effect of various drugs, especially anything that makes you feel good, is that they're changing the neuroacoustics of your brain. Basically, you're making your brain more echoey so that harmonic patterns can actually arise and be sustained in your brain. And in this sense, like music is kind of like some way of fooling the boredom mechanism in the brain so that it's introducing interesting symmetries. Now, the cool thing about this is that it's ultimately a testable theory. And we've been working out very hard on like finding precise ways of testing this. And one kind of like low-hanging fruit, which we suspect may account a very large percentage of differences in happiness, differences in valence, is that basically valence can be approximated by consonance, dissonance, and noise in any given brain state. And I'll explain further what I mean by that. So for example, imagine that you play a pure one piano key, just one piano key. How does that sound? Is that a dissonant, consonant, or noisy? Yeah, it's consonant. It's just like it produces an emotional feel to it, and it's kind of like this very pure sound, as opposed to, for example, nails scratching a blackboard. Okay, that's a very dissonant stimuli, and it's basically, yeah, dissonant stimuli have to do with basically how close the various frequencies are, and I'm gonna go into that in a couple slides. And finally, waves crashing on the ocean. For the most part, you may think that they are kind of like very soothing, and they are soothing. However, the main component of the sound of waves crashing in the ocean is noise. It's something it's a little bit like white noise. It's on its own pretty neutral stimuli, but if you're in some stressed out state of consciousness, it can be very helpful. It basically would destroy a little bit the dissonance that is going on in your brain. Okay, so how do we go about measuring bliss if our theory is true? So the answer to that would be find the ways to measure consonance, dissonance, and noise. And this would be basically a way of testing the symmetry theory of valence. And here is where like cutting-edge neuroscience and advancements in neuroimaging really become extremely relevant. I was at the Psychedelic Science Conference very recently, and I saw this amazing talk by Selen Atasoy and a few others. They're basically starting to map out the various harmonics in the brain. So let me explain what that is. They call it the connectome-specific harmonics. The whole point is that you can't really easily measure them for each person because the precise shape of every person's brain is different. So what will actually resonate or echo in a given brain will have a different shape. So you actually need to put people in high-powered fMRIs, measure the structure of the white matter tracks, the gray matter tracks, and then actually simulate excitation and inhibition waves propagating in that brain and see which ones actually end up echoing. And I think like a wonderful analogy of this kind of analysis is the Chladni plates. So this is, in case you don't know, it's like just a very simple metallic plate, and you have like some way of resonating it with maybe a speaker or some other thing that is resonating, introducing a given frequency. And the thing to note is two things. On the one hand, if you take a given frequency range, say from 100 to 1,000 hertz, what you will realize is that as you increase the frequency of your vibration, it's not that you will get a different pattern for each frequency specifically, but there's going to be a discrete kind of step function. You will go from one of these beautiful patterns into another. There's going to be a phase transition in some critical periods. And the point is that there's only so many possible ways in which it can arrange into these beautiful patterns. And the reason why is because the plate is going up and down, and going up and down, it's happening at a certain speed. And the particular sand patterns that you do see are those where the wave is actually wrapping around the object an integer number of times. And that's why it creates these beautiful symmetrical structures. The other thing to point out is that even if you don't have the right frequency, if you still add the energy to the plate, you will still probably see a pattern unless you're really, really close to the transition state, to the phase transition. And the thing that's going on there is that you don't have some robustness to these. Selin Atasoy and others from her lab and elsewhere in the world are basically exploring this paradigm where they identify states of consciousness as some kind of weighted sum of different brain harmonics. Now, okay, it sounds like kind of too theoretical maybe to talk about like Chladni states. Like show me a brain that's resonating. Okay, so here's the various simulations that they use to kind of like show what those look like. Going from top to bottom is kind of like the main I think these are like sampling from like the first 20 harmonics that they get. And as you see, the further up they are, the bigger the chunks that are kind of like either excited and inhibited are on any given point in time. And now let's actually see this in action. To the very left, you see kind of a low harmonic of the brain, low frequency harmonic in the brain. You have like this propagating wave of excitation and inhibition. And it's like wrapping around itself. Eventually the whole thing repeats. I didn't make the GIFs right to it actually like loop perfectly, but it should be able to. As you go from left to right, you will see that it actually looks like it's going a lot faster, and you have like kind of like this higher frequency. If you focus on any given point in the brain, you will see that it's going on and off at a higher frequency. But that actually seems to be some sort of an illusion, because the traveling wave is going at the same speed, but what's different is the number of times in which it's wrapping around itself in the brain. So even though the equation for the traveling wave is the same, that still can create like all of these different frequencies in the brain.
What is the difference between the 4 panels?
I think, these are just like the different solutions to it. So it's very similar to this.
So those are simulations.
Yeah, these are simulations. Yes. So actually, the whole pipeline is they put a person on an fMRI without any task. They model the structure of the brain. Then they go back to a computer and they make these. I'm experiencing pleasure, and how much I'm experiencing neutral feelings. Okay. So here's kind of the big reveal. how to actually make that. The main trick is going to be to find a way to measure the consonance, the dissonance, and the noise of the like weighted sum of all of these harmonics happening at once. And to do that, I need to explain first how to compute dissonance. So dissonance, it's pretty well studied, at least in auditory experiences, where if you played two pure tones that are like very close to each other, they feel really bad. So if you kind of like, this also works in, if you play a piano key, for example, and you play another one that is really, really nearby, it's gonna sound rough and dissonant. There's kind of like a window. If it's like sufficiently close, you don't notice that there's a dissonance. But there's like definitely a big chunk where you have a lot of like, rough dissonance. And if the frequencies are sufficiently far apart, eventually you don't notice this like dissonance between them, and you can call that a consonant. So likewise, we propose that we can do something like that with the brain. You take all the various harmonics of a person's state of consciousness, you look at those that are very close to each other, and you will say that, okay, those are very likely going to be dissonant. And you may use like an equation like this to actually say exactly how dissonant it's going to be. And then there's like some issue about actually kind of renormalizing or taking into account like the actual weights. But those are technical details. We can, if you're interested, we can talk about it after the talk. There's one slight complication that I think is still worth talking about, which is actually this equation is kind of an approximation. Really, it looks more like this. And the reason is that once you get to an octave in difference, the sine waves will actually fit an integer number of times in the previous one. So it's going to be harmonic again, the consonants between them. So let's say we apply these to like people in different states of consciousness. I would predict that we will see something like this. A person who is like, okay, feeling good, but let's say like leaning towards like neutral, let's say like okay or blah. Here is kind of like the network of how the harmonics are interfering with each other, either in terms of dissonance or consonance. The circles represent basically the loading, like how much of an activity each of these brain states have. And this is what we call the CDNS of a brain, basically the consonance, dissonance, noise, signature of a brain. So the further this dot basically represents experience. Up here would be very dissonant experience, and over here would be a very consonant experience. Now, you notice also these lines, and those represent the kind of like the spectrum of each of these things. So it's not the same if you're experiencing dissonance in low frequencies than if you're experiencing dissonance in high frequencies. So this may actually explain some of the differences, these subtle differences between emotion, that maybe you share the same valence and arousal, but the texture is different. And we think like the texture has to do with the spectrum of dissonance and consonance and noise. This is, let's say you had a wonderful meditation retreat, or really blissful orgasm, or let's say MDMA, or something that really kind of like tunes your brain into some hyper-harmonic state. And we predict you would see something like this. So most of the loading would be on the harmonic component. And yes, like states of suffering and states of high pain or anxiety might look something like this. We would predict that actually, the particular pattern of the spectrum of the dissonant component would be able to distinguish between, say, like anxiety or depression or nausea or any of the other negative states. And now to like precise testable predictions. We predict that if you do this analysis and you put somebody in an fMRI and you give them a psychedelic, what you will see is that they will have more consonants, they will have more dissonance, and less noise. And the effect of that is going to be like criticality or chaos, which is something that you observe. If you put a person on SSRIs or antidepressants on an fMRI, you will see more noise, less consonants, and less dissonance. If you put a person on MDMA on an fMRI, we predict that you will see an increase of a special set of harmonics, such that they will be highly consonant. So it's less about just increasing the power on the harmonics and more about, instead, I imagine that, let's say in 2050, you have some problem, you say, I have a weird negative experience, I can't describe it to people. People suggest I take a hot bath or whatever, it just doesn't help. You go into the doctor's office, they put you through an fMRI, and they say, oh, okay, yes, your CDNS says that your 17th harmonic and your 19th harmonic are highly dissonant with each other. So we recommend you take this super obscure nootropic, let's say chloroacetam, because it reduces the power of the 19th harmonic. And like maybe that's something that if you take it, and most people take it, they don't feel absolutely anything. But you, specifically right now, if you take it, it's going to be wonderful, because it's going to get rid of that very precise dissonance. And yeah, just the last two slides is, like, kind of like this explains, to a large extent, like the overall effects of like SSRIs, because they create this terrible thing that like any hedonic state is really hard. Like crying is hard, orgasm is infrequent and low quality, excitement comes and goes, and very common expression, sadness turns into mush. And music sounds uninteresting and flat. So it's like something that's supposedly going to make you feel good, but in reality it just like destroys any kind of echo or structure in your consciousness. And yeah, the explanation is that there's more noise. It's just like a noise, like it's just noise in your brain. That's it. And then on psychedelics, yes, increased range of emotion, more intense, deeply felt positive mood, more intense negative emotions too. Music sounds very deep and profound. And there's like this thing that people describe like echoing and looping of thoughts and sensations and feelings and things that snap into symmetry. And yes, we would explain that in terms of psychedelics are like neuroacoustic enhancers, basically are purifying these harmonic states in your brain. And hence like, yeah, more intense bliss, but also potentially more intense dissonance. These are just some GIFs that I made to kind of illustrate one of the core effects of psychedelics, which is tracing. And kind of like really shows like this echoing property of psychedelics. Like if you move your hand around, you will see several copies laying behind and just like looping through all of those. And all of that's kind of like the signature of harmonics. And yeah, a couple of other effects. This one is really interesting. Basically the lowering of the symmetry detection threshold, which I've written a lot about in qualia computing. Very prominent effect on psychedelics. You look at any texture and you will see it will start tessellate, you will see mirror symmetries in it, you will see rotational symmetries, and all of a sudden your visual field is just this perfectly symmetrical thing. And it's like, how did that happen? And here's another example of it. And if you're really careful, yeah, some psychedelic art, again, signatures of symmetry and harmony. And yeah, to conclude, I really hope that basically having an understanding of valence, especially, again, like the first component, what makes an experience feel good, will allow us to create a society that has like, it's kind of like what I call a harmonic society. It's based on knowing what makes people feel good and bad at a very deep level, so that we can, in a sense, be able to relate with everybody very, very easily. Their pleasures and their fetishes and the things they find beautiful is not going to be as alien anymore, because it's whatever tunes their brain into these blissful harmonic states. And what tunes your brain might be different than what tunes other people's brains, because everybody's brains are slightly different. So we will kind of be more empathetic with others as well as more empathetic with non-human animals. They're also just pursuing harmony. And the kind of like picture I want to leave you with is that in this account, pleasure is not just like this, I don't know, pointless thing. It's actually everybody's brain is some kind of orchestra. And trying to get to a blissful state is kind of trying to get an orchestra to play a blissful symphony. So, yeah, and I think I just want to give a shout out to other members of the Qualia Research Institute, who conversation has definitely helped a lot with all of these. And I look forward to actually conduct experiments and share the results with everybody.
Phenomenal stuff. Thank you so much for being here for the download, and for keeping perfectly on time. So before we open it up broadly, just a couple kind of big picture questions that are probably on a lot of people's minds that we just knock off the top here. So Andrés, I haven't seen this model of consciousness and altered states, harmony before. I know you've been to some interesting places. Can you talk a little bit about the space that this work came from inside of you? What's the personal origin of your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's through, like teenage depression states, like kind of like really thinking like, I mean, maybe we're just being stupid about like understanding happiness and pleasure and sadness. Like there might be something relatively simple and very practical that we could actually do to help everybody. And I just felt like, it kind of like really motivated my going into that. Definitely like meditation has helped a lot in kind of like seeing the tuning of consciousness and kind of noticing the various harmonics. And at first having like absolutely no idea about like what's going on in my brain, or like, is anybody actually like talking about it in those terms? you look at lots of literature with respect to that, and you see some things that are kind of elusive, and but still kind of like approaching that, kind of like, oh, it struck a chord inside me, or like that deeply resonates with me, or like it rings a bell, and all of these expressions that kind of like point at something like that. And I think over the period of time, yeah, I started. Well, I must say that a very key component was talking with Mike Johnson, which is one of the people in the picture, who kind of like through conversations with him, the idea of, hey, these may actually be like thoroughly measurable. It's not just like something that will remain in kind of just like something you can talk about, but it's something you might actually be able to quantify. So I think he was like key as well in that big space.
Well, thank you. I guess one final question before we open it up here. Just on that point about quantification, and I want to kind of dig in there a little bit. You know, we have this idea, and the Buddhists will tell you that the nature of mind is already there. You just need to strip away the obscurations, polish the mirror, so to speak, right? And I think that model is entirely consistent here. So I wonder, from whatever kind of worldview you want to speak from, what are the next steps in your research in terms of quantifying these interventions, and also what do you see as the most effective delivery mechanisms for implementing the research? Yes, psychedelics, smart drugs, there's the molecular level, but do you see other pathways that these sort of interventions could be delivered through?
Yes. Okay. So first, quantification. I'm undergoing talks with some people in several labs who may actually have access to these technologies to do the experiment. And if anybody knows anybody with access to an fMRI, I would definitely be very interested in talking to you guys. But yes, with regards to kind of like its congruence with like some Buddhist accounts of enlightenment and bliss, I think there's a lot to say in here. If you notice, at the very end, it's kind of what remains is consonant. It's you're kind of like stripping away the noise and the dissonance, and what remains is actually just consonant. So in some sense, you might say that the base level of consciousness is very blissful, and it's just like this unfortunate looping echoes that create like the dissonance and the noise, and it's just very weird that the pure nature of consciousness may be blissful itself. And what was the last thing?
Delivery mechanism.
Oh yes, yes. Well, I think like I'm agnostic about what's going to be the most effective. Again, like as I said, like I just touched on like how to quantify whether an experience feels good, and what remains is like, does it make you ethical? So for example, there's very different talking about something like MDMA versus methamphetamine. I mean, meth makes you very selfish and self-centered. It can feel really wonderful, and I'm sure like you would find the consonants in there. But MDMA also makes you pro-social and care about others. It's just as kind of like two paradigmatic examples of good feelings that have very different social implications. And I really want to incorporate also those things, like does it make you productive, does it help you with your values, and does it make you a better person?
Sure, there's also this whole Brave New World, Aldous Huxley question, are we just going to be drunk on our own machines? So, first audience question, we have an eager person there. Can we bring you the mic without?
Yeah.
And if you have questions, if you could line up in the middle and then come to the mic, please.
Video.
Yeah.
We'll line up on the side. Actually, it's not a very good.
Yes, that's
we're right in the middle of the camera. So try to take one big step.
Hi, it was very interesting, and there's a lot of kinds of questions. But I just more detailed thing. Why were you talking about MRI? Because it's a kind of sounded to me at first when I pronounced MRI, that kind of surprise, because I was picturing that or will be more going about like EEG, like biopotential, because MRI have very low frequency.
Yes.
Yeah. So this frequency is low. Yeah. Yeah. And another question. What do you think Tesla meant that frequencies of universe are the same as frequencies of the brain? And I don't think it's MRI.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, just a point of over there, probably line up over there because the camera is right there. Yes, no, wonderful question. So EEG definitely has like very high temporal resolution, very low spatial resolution, and fMRI has very high spatial resolution, very low temporal resolution. And the work of like Selen Atasoy and these wonderful neuroscience teams, they actually use fMRI because they need to actually look at the structure of the brain, because the structure of the brain will be necessary to be able to simulate where the harmonics and how the harmonics are going to look like. And then once you have inferred what the harmonics are going to look like for a particular person, then you can still use fMRI data to basically infer which harmonics are going on at a given point in time. So it's still like kind of this, I mean, it's an inferential and probabilistic assessment. You're not sampling fast enough to actually being able to see the harmonics like going on and off. But you can still sample in particular regions in the brain that you predict that different harmonics will have like a stronger or bigger kind of effect. So it's an inference based on that. But yeah, so a wonderful EEG would be ideal for that. But in practice, fMRI seems to be what you need.
Different frequencies, like the lower frequencies, but you think it will be the same picture in some way.
Oh yes, well you're still using you're using the technology to estimate each of the harmonics, and the harmonics are going really fast. But you can predict where the harmonics will manifest structurally, and then you look for those regions in the fMRI. So you're sidestepping the whole problem of low temporal resolution. And yeah, with Tesla, I mean, I'm a I am kind of like what you might describe a idealist, physicalist. I mean, I think the universe is made of consciousness, and I think like it's very unlikely that the biggest consciousness around is just what's going on in our brains. There might be some special properties to what's going on in our brains, but I think maybe, I don't know, superfluid, helium, lots of things are probably hyper-conscious that just have no memory. But yes, I think like frequency and resolution are key for understanding the universe in that sense.
Andrés, I enjoyed your talk. I was also at the Psychedelic Science Conference. I was a presenter. I missed the presentation by Atasoy. I'll have to catch up. The brain on psychedelics has been studied since 2010. There's now a whole collection of papers coming out of the Imperial College London and followed up. So you can Google this. The brain fMRI, multimodal MEG fMRI on psilocybin, on LSD, on ayahuasca. And then there's also a very large literature of brain studies during meditation. And there's a common theme running through all of that, and that's the gamma oscillations, 40 hertz and above. I'm presently writing a paper on this, so I'm reading everything I can about it. So that's a state of global sort of unity in the brain, and it's been recorded with Tibetan Buddhist meditations, Vipassana meditation. It's involved in lucid dreams. Ayahuasca studies have reported it. I've done the same with DMT. So I think you have to look at the EEG oscillations. You can now solve the inverse problem with great accuracy. So fMRI is useful, but I think that bliss is a complex emotion, if you want to put it in those. Some people can experience bliss listening to soprano singing, or a favorite tune, or looking at a painting. I mean, it's just, like you say, everybody has their own dialed in, right?
So let's try and keep our questions and answers short and
So I'm curious about, given how much you've thought about this, what are the ethical implications of using a smart drug or target directing a particular psychedelic to shift the brain in a way that it changes its physiological expression, like we've been talking about. If we assume that that physiological expression has an interior phenomenological correlate of an emotion or a mental model or some state of consciousness that's essentially creating that brain state. And just to reveal kind of my assumption here is that we're graced with whatever emotion is arising through an as us or a mental model as part of a soul's developmental process. And that my concern would be that by too rapidly blissing out our brain, we actually risk the developmental potential of facing a non-blissful reality. I'm just curious, since you've been playing in this space a while, what arises?
Yes, no, it's a wonderful question, and I think very important to address. I pointed out that there's like 3 components to how valuable an experience is, and how good it feels is only one of them. Also, like there's the kind of like wisdom and ethical component of it, and productivity as well, how well it can help you enact your values. With regards to, yes, like some learning process for the soul, I'm agnostic about these kind of metaphysics, but I'm open to them. And I would love to have frameworks for studying them empirically. And for sure, if it turns out that there's like some developmental process for some kind of higher being, we should probably optimize for that rather than optimize for happiness and pleasure. So, but that's like something that I think we need to find out, kind of. I recognize people have very strong intuitions about this. But yeah, my general approach is I do suspect, even in those frameworks, that maybe 90% of suffering in the world is probably unnecessary and it's unredeeming. A lot of it just doesn't amount to much in the end. I mean, I almost think of it as some kind of like Stockholm syndrome. People who've been suffering for a long time, they just kind of like have to find a very strong meaning to it. And I think they could have achieved great learnings with it, but I think maybe those learnings could have been achieved with maybe 5% of that suffering. So in that sense, yes, that's important. And one more thing is that if, for example, the Buddhist ontology, the many worlds in the universe is correct, I recognize that understanding how to create pure bliss in a technological way would transform our world into some kind of Deva or a Shura world rather than a pure land where you learn to wake up. And that would be a terrible danger, I recognize. We don't want to just be blissed out and forget about learning about consciousness and the nature of suffering more deeply. But again, my approach here would be, let's keep our minds open to all of these possibilities and find ways of testing if there's any one of them that has more predictive ability.
In your kind of speculative future of applying this in sort of harmonic brain retuning, harmonic brain retuning, you mentioned as, you only mentioned one. I know you were rushed at this point, and you mentioned one way of treating, brain dissonance might be some sort of chemical thing. Have you thought about using music, or more specifically mantras, which is kind of what they're designed for?
Sure.
Have you actually experimented on that, or are you aware of any research into the effects of mantras on brain harmonics?
Okay. I'm not aware of any research on mantras and brain harmonics, but I imagine they probably have like a strong effect. My guess here is that if you can figure out what is the actual like texture or like pattern of dissonance for a given person, you might be able to select out of like, let's say 1,000 mantras, the one that will work the best for that person. So it might be, I think like I'm still kind of like very agnostic about which is going to be the best methods. And it could be that something as simple as a mantra is like all you need. And maybe we really don't need any chemicals. I'm open to that possibility. So, but I suspect even then the kind of like having this framework for like studying exactly where the problem of the dissonance is would basically accelerate the process of healing through those technologies.
So simply, you're talking about having state of symmetry, and what about people's capacity to enjoy symmetry? Is that in your, I mean, we can have a symmetry, but what is our capacity? Is that measurable, or what do you think about that?
Yes, so really you have to think of it in terms of the combination of your state and of the input. So there's like some states of consciousness where a special kind of music will feel really, really awful, even though for a lot of people it might feel really, really good. And I think it has to do with whether the music is really hitting at the neuroacoustics of your brain at that particular point in time. I mean, the music that feels the best when you're very relaxed is very different than the music that feels the best when you're like very excited. And likewise, being able to appreciate some forms of symmetry has to do a lot with that. Like basically what is kind of the underlying harmonics that are present in your brain at any given point in time, such that when you introduce the symmetrical stimuli, you actually get a response. And paradoxically, we actually would predict that very symmetrical stimuli would also produce the worst reactions in people who are already in a very symmetrical state that is incompatible with that input. So to give an example, if you're like very deep in meditation, some particular state of consciousness, and you play the wrong tone, you may feel really, really awful. Maybe that tone is exactly hitting the dissonance window. And if you hit a tone that is just slightly below it, it may feel great. So kind of like being able to appreciate some symmetrical or harmonic input has to do with your pre-existing harmonics. I will just add to that the actual geometry of consciousness, and this is another area of my research, the whole geometry of your consciousness may also change to the point that, for example, on DMT, the things that resonate are not actually Euclidean harmonics, they may be hyperbolic harmonics. So some other states of consciousness, what stimuli actually makes you feel good may be really alien, may look really, really weird.
I just had a question, because you've been talking a lot about sound. Have you explored, there's the 9 solfeggio frequencies, like the 528, the 432 are some of the most common ones, and they do, it's a very, very specific tone on the harmonic scale, and when it's played, it actually creates a brain entrainment. And like 528 is said to actually, when it's played, it can actually heal DNA and cellular, things. And so each of the keys, because we're going short here, I'm not going to go into a whole thing about it, but basically, I'm curious if that's something that you guys have explored, because this very specific tones in the hertz frequency, so it's like 528, 432, there's 9 of them that were studied by like ancient monks, and they go back to the Egyptians, and like there's this whole ancient civilization piece with these particular tones. And has that been something that you guys have explored?
Yeah, I definitely believe that you can have a very strong psychological, like very intense effect from all of these pure tones. I would imagine within this framework, the way you might explain that is you're getting really at kind of like the most resonant frequencies possible. And as you said, like
highly resonant.
Yeah, brain entrainment is kind of in the Chladni plates that, I mean, you can kind of like get away with not getting the right frequency because the plate itself will like arrive at its own natural resonance. But if you get the actual exact frequency, you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck. So I would imagine if there's like some pure tones that like really, really feel really good and have the effects you described, that might be precisely because they're like the most kind of like direct way of getting at some of these pure harmonics.
Exactly, yeah, they all produce a sense of well-being.
Yes.
And so they're,
What's the current state of mapping the neural correlates of emotion and the current state of creating a quantified scale of valence? And why is this model an improvement on both of those?
Yes, so the current state would go something as follows. You put people on fMRI machines and arguably also things such as EEGs. Then you run a very complex machine learning algorithm. Throughout the experiment, you sample people's moods, and then you basically apply the machine learning algorithm to find the best classifier to get there. And the paper might look something like, hey, we found that this particular cluster of voxels correlate very highly with sadness and so on. I think that's really good information, but it really, I mean, if you take people who have like brains that are, like, look pretty different, the clusters of voxels that will actually work will be pretty far apart. And you don't really have like a theory to explain why is that. Why is it the case that in this person, this part of the brain causes this effect, and this other person is this other part of the brain? So the improvement here is actually coming up with a theory from first principles that basically tells you why you would expect these differences. And having a theory is, I mean, I would say it's a tremendous improvement. I mean, I recognize it could be falsified. All of this could be completely wrong, but at least it's making testable predictions. And if it turns out to be true, it would also allow us to basically engineer changes to the brain that would produce results that are completely outside of the range of things we have thought of, that would produce extremely pure and intense emotions that may be completely alien, that someday in the future we might recruit for daily activities or whatnot. But I think like there's tremendous value in actually having a theory to explain why.
And valence, quantified scale of valence.
Yes, I would say it's the same. Machine learning methods without a theory.
Looking at voxels in particular.
Yes.
So, huge thank you, Andrés. He will be sticking around to be leading a breakout discussion group. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a 10-minute break, so get food, get some socializing in. We are going to commence again. After the break, we're going to do our breakout discussion groups. Anybody from the audience can lead a discussion of their choice. It's not where you're going to be giving a presentation, you're going to be facilitating a discussion. So just any kind of topic that you're interested in, preferably consciousness related, possibly bliss related would be nice, but any kind of topic you're interested in. And then we're going to divide everybody up. We have space for 3 breakout groups, okay? So only 3. We already have 3, including Andrés. We only have space, like physical space, for 3. So if you have a burning topic, please come see me or Chris. All right, so we're going to take a 10-minute break and then come back with your topics.
You freaked us out.
What relationship are you in?
I thought though that the stage development talking about
breakout discussion groups.
But I switch out. I switch. Switching up. I really think at least was published. Omni Actually, last Friday I was in
Alright, so everybody please find a seat. We're going to introduce all of the breakout topics. I promise you can talk to each other more as soon as I stop talking. The sooner I start, the sooner I will stop. So everybody please find a seat. Alright, so now we're going to do the breakout discussion groups. So to reiterate, this part of the evening is a time for people to connect with each other, to connect with ideas, to root from these ideas in a deeper way. Not just hearing about them, but really connecting to each other through these ideas. So it's more creating a bridge between the heart and the mind. So coming from this place of, how does it affect you personally? How are you relating to it? Like, how is this impacting you in a personal way, in a way that you can take it away with you? So, this isn't a talk. You're going to be facilitating a discussion. So it's great if you introduce the topic and then really just facilitate the discussion afterwards. So one of the things that we do is we like to introduce ourselves into the group with your name, with a statement of gratitude and an intention. It's super short, takes like 10 seconds to do. You're just going to say, I'm Valerie, I'm grateful for this experience because my intention for this group right now is blank. Super short. So we're just going to go around in the circle, introduce ourselves that way. The other thing that we do is at any point, if anyone in the group feels like we're kind of going off topic, or it feels like somebody is talking more from their head rather than being connected, or anyone's just feeling disconnected in some way, we have a little rule where we hold up both hands like that. And we just take a 10-second pause. So we just count down for 10 seconds. And it's just to kind of recenter, reorient, remember our intentions, and just sink back into the group. So we're going to divide up each of the breakout discussion groups based on the topic. So Chris is going to introduce the topics, and then I'm going to write on this board where they're each going to be located.
Okay, thanks, y'all. So we had a lot of good ideas. So there are a couple sessions that we're actually going to combine because they're two sides of the same coin. The first off, we have Andrés, our amazing speaker, and we'll just continue the conversation on his research, and that will be right here, kind of front, with the Buddha. Buddha within and without. Next up, we have Charna and the Lucia light, which obviously will be in the back corner. Find a way to experience that, or just like take my word for it, book a session. The thing is like frickin' wild and 100% legal. So good stuff. Third, we have Dada here in the rows, and he will be back in room 2, and he'll be discussing retraining your brain with mantras. And if you've ever practiced mantras, like clearly mantra bliss, like whoa. So you can get the download on that. Next up, we have James and Arika. They're kind of going to be doing more of an interactive exploration and more of an exploration of bliss in community settings. So how, as a group of practitioners, we can explore some of these threads together. And they will be somewhere right here, this corner. Next up, we have a discussion with Dr. Juan and our friend Al. I can't quite see you, Al. There you are. This is 2 different on-ramps into bliss. So Juan, if you know him, holds down the psychedelic science really, really strong. And Al has some ideas on the kind of just cognitive ways in. So if you want to talk about these 2 on-ramps into bliss and what those brain states are like, how they might compare, those are your guys. And finally, my dear friend Watson, a brilliant longtime community member, will be leading a session on, hold on, I didn't do the Juan and Al location.
They'll be the back.
They'll be the back over there.
By the kitchen.
By the kitchen. Cool. And then finally, Watson, resident community badass, will be leading one on tech tools for self-awareness. And so it's tracking yourself, noticing and retraining. So essentially, how do we use technology to navigate our inner state towards bliss? So yeah, those are our 6 breakouts.
They will be in room 2.
And they will be in room, I thought Dada was in room 2.
Room 13.
Room 13. Okay, so again, we have Andrés, our speaker, right up here. Charna in the back. Dada with mantras in room 2. The more interactive community side, front center. Juan and Al on ramps to bliss by the kitchen. And Watson on how we can use technology over in room 13.
Room 13 is down this hallway, all the way on the left. Room 2 is across from the bathrooms.
Is it front center?
Here. Over there. Cool. Thanks, everyone. How long do you have?
Through the giant block.
So I could just like do a quantum computation, split myself, and then consolidate all the results in the end. That'd be great.
Indeed. I mean, you could just like non-dual state, track it all at once.
I'd be like very non-dual. It'd
be like dissolve.
Six. Isn't that worse though?
I think you're everywhere else at the same time too.
Yes. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. Like, expand to one.
So, like,
Yeah. Paradox of choice.
I want to advise people.
Hey, do you guys want to sit in a circle? And we'll modulate consciousness. On a complete, completely controlled, spread out block. So, and evidencing where you are all at. Interested in actually doing some hardcore mind control. Talk to me after this. Lord, I'm a software engineer by training, a psychonaut and meditator by community out, and usually like to talk, and so I've highlighted what I like about this community, which is bringing that spirit of curiosity and scientific inquiry. Where are you accessing that? Very unusual spaces.
And
I'll tell you, my own journey, I decided that I don't want to like, I'm going to find the land. There's so many different views that they found the land and they end up hating each other and arguing. Let's find the right people. The walk bliss.
I didn't realize you were here.
This was all the track. And it's great. So
A group of four scattered here. Alright, so I explored medicine that will exist, that you will be found skin technologies, feels called, work now for about 50 seconds for meditating, speak for, you're going to be cut off at 2 years, okay, so you got 2 minutes to like less people, and I want to share with you what we do. What we do is let's exploring family Airbnb. When a person finishes speaking, everybody claps. And what it is in our culture, clapping is cruel. So when people are kind of creating approval, when you speak with their heart,
My name's Josh. I've been coming to consciousness hacking about the last year. I have very little science background. I work at Spirit Rock Meditation Center in Berlin. I have a few years of experience in meditation and psychedelic use as well. So I've decided, I'm always seeing science that kind of validates the experiences I've had through psychedelic spirituality.
What are the 9 principles of community? I'm going to give you an example. Okay? I was doing some exploration.
My name is Mike.
I'm modeling.
Andrés.
This is what I know.
Really fun, really exciting. Feels like we're I guess I like to think about it in terms of right now the way we talk about consciousness is a lot like the way we talk about alchemy. In the middle, clearly there's something cool going on there, but the way we talk about it is very confusing. And I'm very excited to move it toward chemistry, basically, and more of a pre-scientific to actual science.
At noon, he's going to become an adolescent adult.
And the valence thing.
My name is Ozzy. I make web applications. I'm pretty interested in, I've been in the effective altruism community, and like, I'm a hedonic utilitarian, so I'm interested in all of this stuff from that perspective. Right. Also interested to make sure there's no like mass suffering farms. But that's like a smaller word. Yeah, that's basically, that's cool stuff.
Nobody works out and just relax.
My name is Jeffery. I'm a student from my race, Jeffery Martin, so I'm glad that I found this event at the right time. It's very interesting to see that the postings of some of my interests more personally and professionally, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
If you want to work and focus on a project,
I'm Jonathan. I'm very interested in the war on drugs and that more safely and effectively helps people navigate these things. And I think the kind of work you're doing is critically important to this because if you can develop a rigorous understanding of the actual science and necessary behind states of consciousness, will never actually bridge the gap between like San Francisco hippies and Middle America, people who would probably find just the word consciousness to be relevant, much less considering the real powerful positive
something that produces this food and we eat it, and we fill ourselves with that consciousness, every cell of our body is full of that. And we give each other permission to live in this blissful reality. The reality it just is. It's not something out there, it's just something that is.
Yeah, so
all these
as I mentioned, there was like three components to like positive experiences. Obviously, there's like the does it make you ethical? Then there's like does it make you productive? And then like does it make you feel good? I'm curious like if anybody has like kind of like a strong example of something they had or like indeed very strongly part of those three. Like
I am in all those states. I am
very ethical or very
child.
productive.
I am the
very
adult.
peaceful.
I am
Just want to add
the
something. You didn't
guy
know
who
the
gets to
and it makes
put down on
Yes.
which is an
experience.
interesting.
Like, wow, that was a
It's a whole
trip.
discussion,
And I'm
but
glad I'm here. And
yes, it really
I'm glad
reminds me
that
like
we're
super
all really hearing what blissful is and how it lives in us. And simply tuning in.
Brain science studies of happiness. We should give it to you.
Bliss Village.
You measured the EEG of Dalai Lama's vitamin D. French guy.
In Bliss Village, we are
Yeah,
free
I feel
of the
that.
fear that makes us
Generates
think
a lot
that
of
we're not good at it. To lead
I have a
each
friend
other
who has
and
a
play
feedback system,
or
training
experiment
gamma,
or
and he calls it
find
the happiness.
that we're not good
feedback.
enough to give a gift. So we
Read
all know
It works.
that we, through the virtue of
So,
our life experience,
That's
have
just,
the
it's a
ability
neural
to
correlate
share.
of
Everyone
the
is a leader,
result is-
everyone is a teacher.
Okay.
Also, in Bliss Village,
These
we're
things have
free
been
of the
measured in
fear
there's some
of
background.
judgment or mistaken or
More
making mistakes.
Like, are you trying to like get it like microdose?
So when we combine these two things together, what we get
Microdosing might
lots
just,
of people
for
teaching
example,
and
reverse
showing
effects of
and leading, and lots of people following,
taking it for a long time and they just feel like they're
we
lacking.
find our way together as a group.
But I
have a
wanted to
group
say,
mind developed
I forget exactly what the format of the discussion is, but I'll
to
comment on the
find out more about who we
Yeah,
are.
so my perspective on that is, so gamma is like a very high energy states of consciousness. When DMT, like DMT,
We make gamma all the time.
okay,
All of us, right now. We didn't have gamma in the environment. Binds the.
I would say that
You were the priest. Grandpa.
if the theory of valence symmetry is correct, then we would also be able to anticipate that gamma plus a gamma that is very similar, but not exactly the same, might be also very high intensity of suffering. So it's kind of like in the frequency itself, I don't think you have necessarily encoded whether it's pleasant or not. It would be whether you have like the harmony going on.
Only that. Gamma is schizophrenia position. There's a whole literature that's gamma deficit.
Unconditional acceptance.
Right. I just viewed all this stuff before I wrote a chapter for a book, so I'm fresh. I was amazed at how this is amazing. That whole thing on brain imaging studies. But I want to add this, the brain on psychedelics is actually called an entropic brain. It's more disorganized. It's not harmonious. Alpha blocks out, beta blocks out, delta blocks out, and how frequencies come up. And there's a reorganization of the hierarchies and the nerve networks. It's not necessarily more harmonic.
There's something, so the research of Carl Harris and David Nutt and other people who've been examining psychedelics, they're using
David Nutt.
Yes, David Nutt. They look at it from like, hey, let's quantify the amount of entropy in a given brain state. And they detect that, yes, on psychedelics you have overall lower entropy. Okay. But cell and episode, in her talk, that actually that's not getting bit misleading. So really, between, you can kind of like have this scale. On the one hand you have perfect order, and in the other extreme you have perfect noise. So perfect order is just a crystal, like repeating patterns. Perfect order would be just pure noise. What goes on in psychedelics is not so much that it pushes you to pure noise, which would be just entropy. Because we already, I mean, if you want that, you could take an SSRI or take something that just adds noise. It doesn't create any interesting patterns. Celine episode was demonstrating is that so it's you have to think about it in terms of radicality rather than entropy. We would also claim that psychedelics also increase the amount of consciousness. So even though the overall amount of entropy might be higher, I would postulate that the amount of entropy per unit of consciousness would still be lower. So in other words, there's more information, but there's also a lot more consciousness. So the information per unit of consciousness is less. I would say, I mean, a microquail, I mean, like the spectrum of feeling, it could be either like the feeling of a color or the feeling of something that is I think like, I mean, a really good proxy of like the amount of consciousness is like the amount of activity in the thalamus. At least like that's what's being found in a lot of neuroscience. Like if you, like you can have a lot of like extremely intense experiences that are like not necessarily like covered with color or like sound or other things. It's like this very raw feeling of amount of experience. And that seems to be like very tightly related with like dynamic activity. Whereas like the cortex is just kind of like pain.
It is a great role model. Given the triangle state space, we can just add the height as or degree of consciousness as a height variable, and we can get something like this. So this is just that state space that Andrés was talking about, but then this is a hypothesized way to map on this.
So how would you measure that in your experience?
There are various hypotheses known as integrated information
and being was good. Every day begins with myself and others awakening with the rising sun and walking to the hilltop or somewhere where we see the rising sun.
That might be the next extension of this.
Make our route.
Okay, I have a story that's related to the question, which is about an experience that was brought up by like a chemical helper. And I was took psilocybin and went to a mountain in Oregon, actually. And as I was driving down the mountain, I pulled over and looked out at a sea of fir trees with like long pine needle kind of ends. And what I'd never seen before was like a symmetry between every tree for like basically for it's a valley that goes on forever. And it seemed like I could literally see every single pine needle lining up in radial patterns super clearly. So you could go back there today and you'd be like, oh, it's just trees. But for some reason I could tune into like the absolute perfection and alignment of everything. So where does that play into like, what part of my brain was harmonic and what was the psychedelic doing to, it was like affecting my visual system. And it was sort of like in alignment with that. So
Those would be, so yes, it would be basically relatively small set of harmonics that your brain was like purifying. Probably picked up on the usual stimuli to actually like latch on to some of them. For example, like the spatial frequency of it. Like looking at dots that are more separated on a psychedelic, you might get like these like bigger, lower frequency harmonic. Whereas like things that are like very, very close together, maybe like looking at trees from far away, would be high frequency harmonics. And yes, I think I showed in the pictures as kind of this. I described the effect as lowering the symmetry detection threshold. So things that are like quasi-symmetrical or close to symmetry, on psychedelics they snap into symmetry and like they become symmetrical all of a sudden. And I mean, anecdotally, for first-person experience, you can basically do this in a kind of like an iterated algorithm. So you take a texture, could be trees, could be something else. You just like ideally with some further structure, like variety of colors and various things. But yes, many things can work. Some things are better than others. But basically you can like relax and basically let the symmetrification process kind of like bubble up. And if you're like especially, I mean, I recommend very, very pleasant, yes. The visual becomes one part. Eventually also your whole body and your auditory component, all of them become part of this big object, this big fractal.
I had an experience years ago on Palenque where somebody gave me a rose water. It was a conference.
how we're moving, how we're exercising, how we are
They said, have a little smell of this. This guy worked with essential oils. And I took a little whiff of that. And I saw this rose, perfect symmetry, sort of crystallized in my mind. And I had a moment like this. Okay? So that's really the closest I've come to having a correlate in peak experience related to a beautiful soul. Biological clock it's a lot of stress now. You know the visionary phase of ayahuasca, where children are raised also psilocybin, it has to do with alpha brain. And you have the elders, the elder women make this, studying all these papers. Dying to nurture. So when the alpha is suppressed, and give the mother, especially when the visionary is going through her mood to go out, the alpha returns and menstruate and leave. And I've seen this with I let the elders. So this snapping effect, this snapping effect you talked about, like when, like, if he would have smelled rose water, he would have just gotten you wouldn't have gotten that sober, likely. Right, so like, is the, and like relating that to like a visual, it's like a little bit easier for me to comprehend, is like, if there were symmetry like presented in front of me in like a really beautiful photo, colors and stuff, is there like, are you saying that it's happening because it's in my mind, or am I like, interpolating and creating symmetry that's not actually happening?
Yes. Well, so it goes both ways. This is a study I'm actually developing. Basically, if there is some symmetry in there, on a psychedelic, you will detect it more easily. So basically, you're kind of like the So a sober, you might look at something that looks like random noise, but actually there's a little bit of symmetry. On a psychedelic, you would say, oh yeah, there's symmetry there. On the other hand, on a psychedelic, you may generally be looking at noise and say there's a symmetry there, and it's just noise. So it's kind of like depends on, it's kind of like changing the threshold for like when you're detecting. So it could be advantageous in some cases, disadvantageous in others. But returning to the rose water, so kind of like in our framework, the difference between pleasant smells and unpleasant smells also has to do with harmony. But it's harmony in this other experiential space that is non-vision. We suspect there's, I personally suspect there's something and like when it resonates in a harmonious way, that's like pleasant smells, and dissonant resonations is unpleasant smells. Yeah.
Manifold is much more complex than visual or auditory or even touch. Very non
Yeah, very weird geometry. The geometry of smell has definitely not been knocked out, whereas the geometry of the state space of color is like Euclidean. We know it very thoroughly from sex physics. Stacey, you wanted to?
Oh, no, I hope to bring it in just to see if this lands for anybody else, which is the experience that I have in many of my peak experiences is that they're peak experiences of understanding or comprehending activity. And so what I want to tease out here is this feeling that what happens in the experience of things being symmetrical or experiences being equal is that because they're will be like informationally less complex and more complex. We live in a finite universe. They're easier to people have, and then they put the ideas of how to use resources.
Well, what people have in Bliss Village will be great for ways
I think like a high understanding of psychedelics has to do with kind of like purifying some information state to something that is highly compressed, and it's very easily accessible. It's like a very efficient representation of information rather than like the messy boundaries kind of it's kind of like putting a lot of pieces of information at once in a compact representation. So I think there's that connection.
will be a fundamental
So the experience of is the experience of cognitive relaxation.
associatively, it's like it's all one, it's just one thing, which is like it doesn't have parts anymore.
Perfectly acceptable apologetic can't contain any.
Exactly.
It's kind of like what schizophrenia would be like. They see patterns literally everywhere, and others are like that. Because you check in and read the news. The news is not economics down, down, down.
So there's like an optimal dose for like some kinds of representation, some optimal dose for some emotions, optimal dose for like everything in one experiences and so on. Depending on the degree of symmetry. But okay, we're gonna, yeah. I mean, I was just sort of thinking like a form of annealing where you kind of just inject energy into the system and this system can kind of explore all the possible states. And then when it finds like, you know, a better it can just sort of settle in.
Alright.
It's just sort of like finding energetically favorable structures to kind of follow.
Any type
A physics analogy.
interest
Oh, absolutely.
or
I think we will measure that annealing.
in particular.
I was curious what you thought about the experience of synchronicities in real life, and if that's sort of like an experience through meaning instead of through like.
Bliss Village, we're gonna play. We're gonna play with each other. We're gonna keep the balls moving. Even for people who aren't looking, we're gonna keep the balls moving.
Why those experiences.
And when we have conflict, we'll know how everyone will be well versed in the NBC. You don't know what NBC is, learn NBC.
Often psychedelic states.
And NBC, nonviolent communication. And if you, yeah, so we're gonna keep playing.
That's a
All right.
that's a reflection of the harmony of the consonants in the same way.
Yes. So let me tell you.
Like, you know, outside of the mind, I guess more in
So I'm agnostic about whether like when you take psychedelics you're like involved in other people's brain states. I'm open to the possibility. From first person experience, some things really felt very not something I could like try like I tell a friend to like, hey, like I'm gonna give you a number and you should write it down. But if we can arrange the experiment and it works, I would definitely love to try it. That would be revolutionary. But right, like ayahuasca is something called telepathy, which report this experience is very frequently. And yes, but you don't assume that there's this kind of like transpersonal experience. The harmony might be good enough to explain like the feeling. So there's like this thing that you can do on psychedelics, which is like choose two people you know from your life. Then they don't like each other. They have like some kind of human's value, and you visualize the mind's actively like both of them first.
5-minute warning, we're all gonna come back.
So you take the basically you're like in your sensory deprivation on the floor of your bathroom with your lights anyway, earplugs required yeah and some good acid and you imagine two people who disagree a lot disagree with each other and what will happen is that you will see them have a conversation kind of like each will bring like points of view that the other one wasn't considering and at first it might be very violent and very energetic but eventually they will kind of be able to understand each other's points of view because it kind of comes down to like they have access to different information to different experiences and at some point they will kind of like understand like where each of them came from and they will kind of like harmonize and become friends again. I don't know if that actually if that like makes it easier for them to be friends in real life, but like at least like in your own experience, like kind of shows you a possible path for how to make them harmonize with each other. But the feeling of them like arriving to these like harmony and friendship, I think it really has a lot to do with also this like feeling of harmony and symmetry. In this case, it would be of your representation of them. So it's kind of
seem that that theory conflicts with the one that the more coherent or symmetrical these states are, the more blissful they are, and less information processing they're capable of doing. That you have any thoughts on that?
That's I mean, it connects to what I was saying, which is the criticality. Like, I mean, on very high doses, the information in your consciousness will be very low, so not very useful. But there's maybe a critical window, and an LSD might be in like 100 and 200 micrograms, where actually, when you're doing this symmetrification process, you're still preserving enough information that those representations are actually more efficient. So like it's actually helping you process information in a better way. But it's like a critical window. Like it's if you don't take enough, that's not going to happen. If you take too much, the symmetrification will take over.
2 Nobel Prizes as a result of LSD pills.
Yeah.
Francis Crick, structure of DNA. And chain reaction. Jeffery Martin. I sat down and listened to experience of how he tripping on LSD and he saw the solution to the PCR.
Yeah, his autobiography is great.
Surfing.
Yeah,
they actually made it in life.
More specifically, though, some of the work that people are continuing to study is like, can the machine elements do math, for example? Like on like, is there any actual external information that you're accessing, or is it just internal information?
These were already prepared minds.
Yeah. So slightly different than what we're doing.
They got the insights on LSD.
That's a great question.
Change the world.
Yeah.
Have you seen Machine Elves? That sounds like the most wackiest fucking question you could ever hear.
Machine Elves?
Have you seen Machine Elves?
More like
Okay. And I saw them in checkered board, like a chessboard, and it was white and blue checker squares, and they would flip upside down, like you know in the old airports or stock exchanges, the numbers would flip down and it would update the times of the city. It was like this kind of thing, and sometimes it was like white to blue to white to blue, and then they flipped to black, and it was like a window, and a little machine elf would pop up. It was like he had this huge smile. It was like, then it would pop back down. It was just
What were you on?
it was game team.
Was it clear to you, like beyond that, any doubt that these were actually other beings, like not manifestations of your own mind?
They had like a total unique character. It was like a gnome, like you know the gnome from this movie. It was like this character just popped up and he had the biggest smile. Something happened. I left. If they stuck around enough, I would have been able to ask them some questions. They just kind of like and then back down.
It's still
More
like,
testing is not.
we don't know, right?
For science.
It could still be a projection of some part of your unconscious mind.
Could be.
I think it's
All a projection of your you think this is real? This is a movie that's happening right
right,
now.
but a lot of people argue that the machine elves in particular are like literal
Other realities.
Yeah, I know. Scientifically speaking, I couldn't say if there are other things.
I mean, you move across dimensions. I'm convinced of that. I'm convinced there's parallel realities. I've seen spirits. Spirits. You see them.
Have you got any more data about related to
They interact with
very
you.
related to that?
Because like, I think like if you do access other realities, hopefully we can make some testable predictions. And I mean, I have like one bifurcations of the universe, you would be able to tell which of the three dots is the quantum as opposed to the other two. I actually programmed this test and I ran it. And I got no results. I wasn't able to tell, at least on the doses that I tried personally.
You gotta be one.
Yeah. I know.
Subjects here.
So definitely, if I know anybody who will take a big dose, and like maybe, especially if this has happened before to them. Like if somebody says like, oh, every time I do this, like I see the bifurcation.
Anybody know who that
definitely
is?
ask them to come to me and let's do that experiment. But any further to that, it's like, can the aliens or the other entities give you information that you wouldn't be able to get from any other way?
Is that effect the same as like predicting the future, like here, like knowing something's gonna happen, and then immediately it happens? Is that the same idea?
Yeah.
Well, according to that, for that example, like someone deciding to sit down or stand up, it's like very high level.
There's several existing assumptions such as that, like when you're really undecided, actually there's at least some level of quantum randomness that goes into your quantum condition, which may not mean I suspect it's true. In which case, actually, you would have a stronger effect by looking at the pure quantum random number generator. But it could be that actually it's not quantum randomness; it's like soul randomness. It's just something else. It's like not captured by the.
Are you sure it was acid though?
It was. It's the story was written by this guy in Reddit. His username is I should be LSD on a plane, and it was. And it was a guy who took like 3 hits of acid on a national plane, and this happened to him. And then people were commenting like, "Oh, that happened to me too," and it's like, and in all of those cases, it was like, "Yeah, it took way more than I thought." It was actually me. So it's completely.
I had an experience on LSD where I was bilocating. I was in Joshua Tree.
One thing I propose is that next Wednesday we go to ecstatic dance in Oakland.
Called the Chasm.
And to
Amazing.
the Bliss Village
Red
there.
blood cells.
Big Bliss for that. Or Sundays, I'm back in town. And I'm also here.
I stepped out on the ledge. There was a window that you could see outside.
Blissful connections and having play. And I'll be doing that at Golden Gate Park as part of the
I was sitting at the
University
table
Center of Love and
having a
at the
conversation.
Sunset.
One moment. Another moment.
Also, anyone
Later, it was early.
sharing, anyone can give me a ride to Marin tonight. I could stay a little longer, otherwise I have to leave in the next couple days.
Consciousness can improve.
So I'd like to get in touch with anyone. Here's my Facebook information.
You know what? Disassociatives, like you take what's called Jimson weed, which is like you a ride. Yeah, Dactyl. Yeah, it's a delirium. Yeah, it's completely killing you.
No, I can go anywhere.
Don't take that. Don't take that. People will be like in a room like this, and they'll see somebody stand up and open up drawers out of the wall, and after they look it up, they'll just disappear completely.
Yes.
And then they'll see people smoking cigarettes, but actually you as the person taking it will be like having a cigarette,
Awesome.
smoking it, and then looking down and realizing you never had a cigarette the whole time.
All right.
I've never done it myself.
That's because the nervous system rather than surfing.
And I'm also interested in using marijuana because I think it's important. So I like using one hit to open to.
Oh, and we did a cool thing on DMT, and that same story when I saw this in the machine house. I looked down at the carpet, and I saw it was like a shag carpet. And it's just a normal, regular carpet. But when I was in DMT, the carpet had like total fractals in like manual and stuff. That was just insane. So yeah, you definitely see patterns. I would say that there was that pattern was there somewhere. Like I wasn't necessarily,
tectonic structure is important. These guys claim that they're visual columns. These are geometric arrangements of movements, etc. But I don't think these guys are going to have
We're going to come back to the main
Is that structure in the harmonics, or is it in the physical, like,
I suspect it's design. So again, I'm agnostic. I'm agnostic about whether it's high quality reality or but I suspect it's
I'm not sure we're going to test it.
You have 2 minutes? So, let me get the figure that you guys have shown some people, right? So that happiness or ultimate balance relates to symmetry and contrast space. What is this space?
So it's
But if you want to test this theory, you have to get into physical space, and one is actual fractals and 2D physical. What else?
because bigger picture, not necessarily like there are a lot of problems
Alright, if everybody can come back to the main room, we're just going to do a quick closing meditation. And then you all can continue socializing. So please find your way back to the main room, grab yourself a seat, and settle in. Or you can stay standing if that feels better for you, but let's all just come back to the group just for a quick closing. And if we could all come to a silence. And wherever you are, just get comfortable. And feel into your bodies again. If it feels comfortable for you, you can close your eyes. Just let your eyes come to a soft, gentle focus. Just notice what's coming up for you. Notice how you feel now compared to maybe how you felt at the beginning. Just what are you noticing in your body? Feel your seat underneath you, the ground underneath you. Let everything sink in that you learned from tonight. Any interesting insights, deep connections, maybe new friends you made, conversations that were interesting. Notice what really resonated about this event. Where you felt your attention most. Maybe where you felt most like yourself. Or most curious. What was making you think about things in a new way? What is your relationship to bliss now? And as you let these questions just kind of sink in, let's take a few closing collective breaths together. So empty out the air in your lungs. And take a big exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And another inhale. And exhale. And last one. Inhale. And exhale. feel ready, you can slowly blink your eyes open. And just notice everyone in the room around you. And now that you're feeling all blissed out, we're going to hand out a survey so you can give us really good ratings. And please tell us what made you feel blissful about tonight and what could make you feel even more blissful. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you like to see more of? We're going to pass them out. We need a pen. We only have about like 30 pens or so try to share them. If you have your own, that'd be awesome. And please return the pens afterwards. They are not ours. We borrowed them from this wonderful ecosystem. So please return the pens afterwards. And you can leave the surveys up here or give them to Chris, myself, or Nathan. And if anybody has any questions about membership, about volunteering, about just consciousness hacking in general, how you want to get involved, come talk to me. Again, my name's Valerie. The membership, the website is opencollective.com/CHSF. Again, that will save you big money if you want to attend future events. And Chris, do you want to say anything else?
Thanks again for coming, and thanks again to Andrés. Let's get one last round of applause for our amazing speaker.
Amazing. Thank you all. Have a great night.
I'm also missing